When we talk about motivation, we often describe a feeling, a welcome visitor that arrives unannounced, pushes us forward, and then vanishes just as quickly when life gets in the way. Practice, however, is different. Practice is not a mood. It is a decision, a commitment that holds true even when our energy wanes. And that quiet difference between I feel like it and I am doing it is the turning point between merely trying something and truly mastering it. Let's begin with motivation. It is the emotional spark. It can ignite from a looming deadline, a word of praise, a new goal, or the simple thrill of a fresh start. The problem is that motivation is a fragile thing, easily swayed by the currents of our lives. How well we slept, our level of stress, the people around us, even the food we've eaten. If you've ever had a week where you felt unstoppable, only to be followed by one where you couldn't bring yourself to do a thing, you have felt the limits of motivation. It is real, but as a system, it is unreliable. Practice, on the other hand, is a behavior. It is the action you repeat with enough consistency that improvement becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Practice can feel far less glamorous than motivation. At times it is boring, at times frustrating, and on many days you won't notice any progress at all. But over time, practice builds a momentum all its own, a force that does not depend on your mood. Here is a way to see it. Motivation is the flash of a struck match. Practice is the slow, deliberate work of building the fire. A match lights quickly, but its flame is brief. It cannot last unless you feed it. Practice is what feeds the process. It creates the very conditions where motivation can finally work for you, rather than against you. Consider the journey of learning a new language. Motivation might look like binge-watching films, buying a beautiful set of flashcards, or planning to truly begin as soon as you feel ready, to notice any progress at all. But over time, practice builds a momentum all its own, a force that does not depend on your mood. Here is a way to see it. Motivation is the flash of a struck match. Practice is the slow, deliberate work of building the fire. A match lights quickly, but its flame is brief. It cannot last unless you feed it. Practice is what feeds the process. It creates the very conditions where motivation can finally work for you, rather than against you. Consider the journey of learning a new language. Motivation might look like binge-watching films, buying a beautiful set of flashcards, or planning to truly begin as soon as you feel ready, but the day you are tired or busy, that motivation may evaporate. Practice, however, looks smaller, steadier. It is reviewing 10 words every morning. It is one short listening exercise. It is writing a few sentences or repeating a handful of phrases aloud. There are no fireworks, only repeated, dedicated contact with the skill. What makes practice so powerful is not the single, inspired session. Its power lies in how it physically reshapes our brains. Learning any skill involves both effort and repetition. Each time you practice a movement, recall a fact, or solve a problem, you strengthen the neural connections related to that task. This strengthening is cumulative, which is why consistency is the secret ingredient. Research consistently shows that performance improves more reliably when practice is distributed over time, rather than crammed into intense bursts. Even a shorter session, done frequently, leads to better retention because you are giving your brain repeated chances to encode and retrieve the information. Now, think of a musician. Motivation might be the dream. I want to play like my hero. That is a wonderful start. But the element that transforms the dream into reality is practice, a structured, disciplined process designed to improve technique. But what fuels this fire when the initial spark is gone? This is where consistency deepens from a simple habit into a spiritual discipline. When people hear the word consistency, they often think of brute willpower, of forcing yourself to do something, no matter what. But that is only the surface. The deeper, more sustainable reason to be consistent is that it aligns your daily actions with your most cherished values, the quiet principles that guide how you want to live. Consistency is not mere repetition. It is an act of integrity. It is proof. It is how your life begins to match the person you claim you want to be. Let's make this tangible. Imagine someone who says, "I value my health." But their calendar tells a different story. A week of takeout dinners, no sleep routine, and no movement. In their mind, they may still identify as a healthy person, but their behavior sends a different message, most importantly, to their future self. Consistency closes this gap. When you show up regularly, even in the smallest ways, a 20-minute walk 3 or 4 times a week, preparing one simple, nourishing meal, you are not just improving your fitness. You are training your identity to align with your values. Eventually, the action stops feeling like an obligation and starts feeling simply like who you are. There's a powerful way to frame this. Values create the direction, and consistency creates the path. Your values answer the question, why? Consistency answers the question, what do I do, even when motivation is gone? Motivation is volatile. Some mornings, you wake up ready to conquer the world. Other mornings, you hit snooze 15 times, and your mind feels like it's running on empty. But your values, if they are truly yours, do not disappear on a rough day. Consistency becomes the bridge between who you are when things are easy and who you are when they are hard. This alignment of action and value requires a skill we rarely train: our attention. In many spiritual traditions, attention isn't just a mental tool. It is the training ground where we learn what to trust. When your attention is scattered, you feel pulled in 1,000 directions by every thought, sensation, and external demand. But as your attention becomes steady and kind, you begin to notice something else. A quiet, inner signal that is distinct from the noise. That inner signal is the foundation of self-trust. The spiritual training of attention often revolves around a single, core practice: the act of returning. Whether it's Buddhist mindfulness, Christian contemplative prayer, or disciplined reflection, the pattern is the same. There's a powerful way to frame this. Values create the direction, and consistency creates the path. Your values answer the question, why? Consistency answers the question, what do I do, even when motivation is gone? Motivation is volatile. Some mornings you wake up ready to conquer the world. Other mornings, you hit snooze 15 times, and your mind feels like it's running on empty. But your values, if they are truly yours, do not disappear on a rough day. Consistency becomes the bridge between who you are when things are easy and who you are when they are hard. This alignment of action and value requires a skill we rarely train: our attention. In many spiritual traditions, attention isn't just a mental tool. It is the training ground where we learn what to trust. When your attention is scattered, you feel pulled in 1,000 directions by every thought, sensation, and external demand. But as your attention becomes steady and kind, you begin to notice something else, a quiet, inner signal that is distinct from the noise. That inner signal is the foundation of self-trust. The spiritual training of attention often revolves around a single core practice, the act of returning. Whether it's Buddhist mindfulness, Christian contemplative prayer, or disciplined reflection, the pattern is the same. You bring your attention to a chosen anchor. You notice when it has drifted away, and you gently guide it back, without judgment, without turning the drift into a story of failure. A simple example is the practice of focusing on the breath. You sit, feeling the air at the tip of the nose, or the rise and fall of the chest. Inevitably, the mind will wander to a conversation you regret, a plan you need to make, a worry that feels urgent. In this training, the wandering is not the enemy. The moment you realize, I'm gone, that flash of awareness is the practice. The gentle return is the repetition that builds the muscle. Over time, your attention learns a new pattern. Notice, soften, and return. This training connects directly to self-trust. True self-trust grows when two things become reliable: your perception of reality and your ability to reflect on it wisely. Attention training sharpens both. You start to notice the subtle patterns of your own life. When I ignore my body's signals for rest, I become irritable. When I pause before speaking, my words are clearer. These connections are not mystical. They are the direct result of paying attention. You begin to trust yourself, not because you believe every thought you have, but because you trust your ability to observe those thoughts with clarity and compassion. And as we learn to trust our own attention, something profound begins to grow. It is a form of faith, not a blind faith, but one that is built piece by piece through the evidence of repetition. Repetition means you do the right action again and again, even when the outcome isn't immediate, and even when you cannot yet prove it's working. This repeated behavior trains your mind to expect progress, not as a hopeful guess, but as a natural consequence of showing up. Over time, your brain starts to forge a new connection. I am the kind of person who follows through. This identity becomes an internal evidence system. The truth is, results are often delayed, but the signals of progress start early. When learning a skill, you rarely see a dramatic improvement on day one, but you might notice something smaller, that you can pronounce a word a little more accurately, or that you understand one more paragraph than you did last time. Repetition creates these micro-wins. Even if the grand result is months away, you are building a pattern of reliability. And when you collect enough of these reliable moments, your confidence is no longer tied to a single outcome. It becomes grounded in the process itself. This is where faith grows beyond results, because repetition builds trust in your own capacity. External results come and go. A project can fail. A week of study can feel unproductive. If your faith is tied only to results, then every setback feels like a final verdict on your worth. But when your faith is built through repetition, you interpret setbacks differently. You start to see them not as failure, but as feedback. You can continue because you have already proven to yourself, time and again, that you know how to return to the work. Of course, there are days when this process feels less like carving a path and more like pushing a boulder uphill. Days when life is busy, emotions are low, and motivation is nowhere to be found. Many of us interpret this struggle as a sign that we are failing. But in true spiritual growth, the moment when consistency feels hard is the very moment the discipline becomes most meaningful. This is not a sign of weakness. It is simply biology. We believe we should only engage in our practices when we feel ready, but the truth is that readiness often comes after. The act of obedience, not before. When you consistently show up, your brain learns, this is what we do at this time of day. If you wait for the feeling, you are always starting over. The first spiritual move, then, is often a practical one. Reduce the friction. Keep your tools where you can see them. Choose a short, repeatable format. 10 minutes after breakfast is more durable than an hour when I feel inspired. Short does not mean shallow. It means repeatable. The discipline is often faithfulness without fireworks. You are not chasing a spiritual high. You are practicing devotion. Imagine someone who wants to pray daily. Monday is wonderful. Tuesday feels flat. By Thursday, they think, I'm too tired for this. The moment of discipline is choosing a smaller, steady prayer instead of abandoning it entirely. Perhaps it is just 2 sentences. Lord, I am here, even if my heart is elsewhere. Over time, that kind of consistency teaches the soul that you do not have to manufacture an emotion to be present. Ultimately, this discipline asks us to shift our focus from the single achievement to the life that produces them. An achievement is a finish line, one promotion, one completed project. Consistency is the engine that makes those achievements more likely, again and again, until success starts to feel less like luck and more like a natural outcome of who you have become. It is the power of the compounding effect. If you only read when you feel inspired, you might finish 1 book a year. But if you read for 15 minutes every single day, you are averaging more than 90 hours of reading in a year. That is not magic. It is mathematics, powered by consistency. And the benefits compound. You build skill through repetition. You build resilience, seeing failure as information, not a verdict. And you lower the friction of daily life, turning powerful actions into automatic defaults. The goal is not to burn brightly for a week, but to tend a flame that can last a lifetime. A plan that requires perfect energy is fragile. A plan that works even when you are tired is durable. Consistency connects your actions today to the person you are becoming tomorrow. It is the quiet, steady, and deeply spiritual work of building a life where the extraordinary becomes the everyday.